everyone, and my fuel I chose was ethanol. So, some background of ethanol. Ethanol is a renewable biofuel made out of plant material and biomass, but it's mainly made out of corn and starch products. So, ethanol was first mixed with gasoline in the 1930s during World War II, and this shows that it is an effective fuel source and can be used as a fuel source. Ethanol's use of fuel really originated prominently in the 1970s when petroleum and oil prices increased and environmental concerns and research became more prominent and more dominant in that era. And then 2005, the Renewable Fuel Standard, the RFS, mandated 4 billion gallons of ethanol to cut carbon dioxide damage by petroleum and gasoline that is being burned by automobiles. And then another amendment is that the 2022 goal is that 36 billion gallons of renewable fuels are used in cars, and 15 billions of gallons are supposed to come from corn-based ethanol. So how is ethanol produced? Ethanol today is primarily produced by a process of fermentation. So it first starts off as corn, and then the corn is ground into cornmeal. And the cornmeal is mixed with water and heated to break the starch down into sugars. And then an enzyme called alpha amylase is used to break the mixture down even more into more simpler sugars. And then it's transferred into these fermentation tanks where yeast is added, and the yeast consumes the glucose in the sugars and it creates ethanol. And then it's distilled after to get rid of all the water in the mixture to really produce pure ethanol, which can be used as fuel grade. So the availability of ethanol. It's widely available as a source of biofuel. It is very available in the U.S. and all over the world. And then there's ongoing effects to maximize the output of ethanol, and research is still being done on how to maximize it and make it more efficient compared to gasoline. And then carbon reducing goals and incentives for corporations also drive the production of ethanol. So ethanol and the carbon footprint. Ethanol itself, when it is burned, it does cause carbon dioxide to get into the atmosphere, but it's not nearly as much as whenever you burn gasoline. And ethanol compared to gasoline has a 40% less damaging effect than gasoline does. And the U.S. Department of Energy said that carbon dioxide released is taken back by crops that are being grown through photosynthesis. So ethanol and the effect on the economy. In 2022, ethanol created 78,800 U.S. jobs alone, and the industry costs about $46.8 billion alone on raw materials. Most of that's on corn, and then ethanol also creates a demand for crops and corn as well. And then ethanol also moderates the price of gas and oil. So ethanol, communicating it to the public. So the EPA and U.S. Department of Energy make campaigns to convert people to use ethanol with tax incentives and other benefits such as reduced carbon emissions, sort of eco-conscious efforts. And then many Americans will still choose to use gasoline over oil, but these campaigns will reduce or try to reduce the amount of people using gasoline by showing the effect of its damage on the carbon footprint and the atmosphere. So the current evaluation of the use of ethanol. Ethanol it's widely used throughout the U.S. and the world, but it's still very underutilized compared to gasoline. And the production to produce ethanol is much more expensive and it's time consuming than compared to oil refining and gasoline production. So my plan of action would be to try to put more funding into the research of ethanol and how to truly optimize it and decrease the cost of producing ethanol. And then also try to add more incentives tax cuts for companies and corporations, like Shell, for example, to convert them to use ethanol over gasoline. And then I would also fund a nationwide campaign that is all over the nation to use ethanol and show how destructive gasoline is to the atmosphere compared to the use of ethanol. And then here are my sources, and thank you all so much.